Well, hello friends, and welcome again to another Blick Art Materials Live. I am Julie Swanson Davis. I'm a senior education developer with Blick Art Materials, and I am going to demonstrate pastel painting to you tonight. But before we get started, as you probably are aware, if you've been here before, we like to give away gift certificates, and we will put your name in the drawing for a $100 e-gift card. And all you have to do is respond to our weekly prompt. And this time, what I'd like for you guys to do is take a look down here at this pastel set. I know you probably can't see the whole thing, so if you'd like a better look at it, you can always go to our materials list and click on the link and see the whole set. But here's my question. If we're all looking at this pastel set, which one are you going to choose first? Let's just say that I was going to give everybody one of these pastels. Which one would you go for? I'm not asking what your favorite color is. I'm asking which pastel you would pick. So don't tell me the name. Of course, you don't know the name of the color. Just say the sky blue, the light green. You don't have to tell me where it's at in the picture. Just which one sucks you in and draws you to it immediately. That's it. Respond to that. We'll put your name in the drawing for a $100 e-gift card. All right, well, let's start with pastel painting tonight. Oh, I love a good pastel painting, don't you? And I've kind of geared this tonight really for someone who is starting in pastel painting, or perhaps you're an artist that is already working in another medium and you've kind of thought, oh, I'd like to try pastels, but I'm just not sure how to go about it. So it's going to be kind of an easy project, but we've got ways and a few things that I'd like to talk to you about, some rumors about pastels I'd kind of like to debunk. And let's get started, shall we? First of all, this beautiful pastel set that I was mentioning earlier is one of our Blick Artists Pastel sets. And this is the half pastel set. Now, especially if you're starting out in pastels, you might not need to get a full stick. This is the size of the full stick right here. And that, will last you quite a while, actually. But if you want to try and get a lot of colors at once, one of the ways to go about it is to get a half pastel set. And so they are half-size pastels, and you get more colors in a set that way. And if you've ever seen a professional pastel artist at work, it's usually just gorgeous to see all of the beautiful pastels that they've collected. And I want to say that yes, you want to collect the pastels. I know I have a good amount of them myself, but you don't need to have hundreds of pastels to do a pastel painting. I'm going to show you tonight how to do a painting like this example right here, using only about 15 pastels, only about 15 colors. So let's proceed with that. Our Blick pastels here, these are artist quality pastels. They're called a soft pastel, but they're not super soft. They actually are a little bit on the firm side for a soft pastel. I've used soft pastels before where it's almost like a powder in the way that it comes off the stick. Our pastels are a little bit of a medium soft, and I've heard people call pastels chalk before. That's a misnomer. A chalk, of course, is a very hard medium and usually not with any sort of pigment in it. Our pastels are using pure artist pigments. They are light fast. Pastel paintings will last as long as oil paintings or watercolors or any painting medium as long as they're protected. So our surface that we're using tonight is a sanded pastel paper. And let me just rub this so you can hear it now. Yes, my hands are kind of dry. It's winter time, but you can probably hear the scratchy quality of the paper that just by rubbing it. This is the Mi-Teintes touch paper. So it is a sanded pastel paper. It comes in a paper that you can just tape down to, I've used a piece of foam board, but you could use a panel, you could use a heavy piece of cardboard if you wanted to, just a rigid surface. but you could also buy it in a panel as well and in a pack of multicolors. If you didn't want to buy pastel paper, you can always make your own. So let me just run that by you here real fast. This is just a regular piece of drawing paper. This is the Mi-Teintes as well. And this right here has been coated with a pastel ground. And I would just want to pull that up here and show you. I have the golden pastel ground is what I used on here. We carry a couple other lines as well, but this is kind of a translucent color. It gives a little bit more texture. You can leave some brush strokes in. It is translucent, so there is a slight color shift to it, but not much. And if you wanted to put that on something like your favorite artist panel or a canvas panel or perhaps a piece of wood, you could do that. You could make a pastel surface out of any of those surfaces. But I've got a piece of sanded pastel paper up here, and I like to use a tinted ground to start off with. First of all, it's kind of the lazy way of doing things because you can leave parts of the painting showing through and nobody knows. It just looks like it's part of the painting. But it also really gives an overall tint to the piece, which helps in the mood of it. Okay, well, I chose for our demo piece today, we're going to do this stock photo that I found of some poppies in a vase. And I love poppies. First of all, the bright, beautiful color, but also they have kind of a relatively flat leaf, large leaf, which is easier than, say, a chrysanthemum or even a rose or something to actually render in a pastel painting. So I chose that, and plus this just looks like it's a painting already, doesn't it? I mean, that is just begging to be turned into a painting, that photo. All right, so on our materials list, if you follow the link that's listed here, we have all the materials I've just discussed, but I also included this as a reference photo in case you want to use that. And I've also included a template for you because I'm all about time saving and making things easier. So if you print it out, there's 2 pages there, one called the top and one called the bottom. So they're just on 8.5 by 11, and I'm using an 11 by 14 board, so this will fit just perfectly. Now you're going to need to kind of cut away the top of the bottom, and that way we can line these 2 images up. And we're going to use some transfer paper. Let me just take this down here for a minute. Now I don't know if you've used transfer paper before or not. I know a lot of you guys have, but it's really graphite, like is in a pencil, on a very thin tissue-like sheet of paper. There's 2 sides to it. One side has the graphite on it, and the other side's just kind of a matte, faded side. So if you put the graphite side down, and then you put your image over that, I'm kind of lining it up where I want it to go. There's a nice straight edge along one side. And then I've got the bottom side that I'm going to lay on top. And then you can take some artist tape, some more artist tape. Artist tape is just easier to remove. And it doesn't stick to the paper surface beneath it. So masking tape, you know, sometimes you've used masking tape and you think, this is great, this is working just fine, and then you go pull it off and it takes part of your paper with it. Ever have that happen? Oh yeah. So that's why I recommend using artist tape instead. All right, so what I would do next is I would take a pen, and I like to use a color pen, like a red, or this is a nice blue, and I'm going to go over the template lines that I've provided and just kind of use a little bit of a firm pressure. You don't have to push very hard, but just a firm pressure. And you're just going to trace over every single line. And I'm not going to take the time to do that, but let me just kind of peel back. And I didn't get my transfer paper in exactly the right place, but you kind of get the idea of where it's transferring here. It just looks up like a pencil drawing's happened. Now I'm going to set this aside because I have one that's already transferred. So this will save us a little time to have it already on the piece like this. All right, so my easel is just a nice little table easel, and it's tilted forward. I know you can't really tell that from out there, but pastel being a dusty medium, if you paint flat or if you paint with your easel leaning back like we normally would, the dust is going to just kind of stay there. If you lean it forward just slightly, the dust is more likely to fall off onto the tray, or I do recommend like putting a piece of paper or something underneath to catch any dust that falls. So it's tilted just forward a little bit, and I'm going to start with the background of all things. All right. Oh, and before I get started, let me talk a little bit about protecting your hands, because your hands are porous, and if you're using any kind of medium, really, not just pastels, and putting your fingers in, you are getting a foreign substance in your body. And even though it may be a perfectly safe, non-toxic substance, it's still a good idea to protect your hands. And so I'm putting on a glove. I might also mention that we have these little finger cots, and these are made just for pastel painting. They just kind of go down onto your fingers like that, and you can just put it on maybe 2 fingers that you use, and you don't have to cover up with a glove the entire time. All right, so now we're going to dig in, and if you're using pastel for the first time, you can use the side to create large areas of color, and you can also use the tip to make smaller and more detailed lines. So let's start out with a very loose background. I'm using a brown pastel. This is kind of a reddish, darker brown, and you'll notice I'm using it on the side so that I can create large areas. I'm using it very gently, very softly, and that's just going to be kind of the darker areas, a little vignette around the image. And then I'm going to come right on top of that with some blue, because you notice from the reference photo, I do definitely want to work some blue in there. It's a little bright for what I would like it to be, but I'm going to show you later how to mute that a little bit more. But to start out with, I'm just going to try and loosely mark in where the background is. And I'm going to transition gently from the dark brown to, let's see, it's also a little greenish back there, to a lighter greenish in the middle. And I'm going right into my drawing, into the transferred image, over the flowers just a little bit, like so. Now, when I first tried pastel painting, I'm not sure about what's what right now in some of these areas, so I think I'll just kind of hold off on that. But I did forget this corner down here, so I'm going to go ahead and mark that in. When I first started pastel painting, I just wanted to get in there and immediately start spreading that dust around, you know, smoothing it and working it. And later on, I found out that really that's not what you want to do. It's, if you think about sandpaper and how the grit has spaces between the grit pieces, if you go fill in between all those grit pieces and press it down and fill that in, pretty soon it's all filled up and you don't have that grit then to put on top of there. So I would recommend, if you're going to blend, wait until the end and do any of your blending. And for now, just go ahead and gently mark it in. And that way you'll have more texture from the sanded paper longer. Okay, while I got my dark out, I'm going to just mark kind of the areas that we've defined as the centers of the poppy, so very dark areas there. Okay, and I'm going to fill in the vase area, and I'm talking just the middle of the vase area here with some dark brown as well. There again, just loosely filling that in. All right, next I'm going to loosely fill in the poppy area. And I'm going to still use kind of the side of it, but I can go around the outside with the edge and then fill in. Again, I'm not being super precise at this point. I'm just really wanting to block an area of color and one local color, which is scarlet, beautiful scarlet poppy red. With the tape around the edges like this, I can go right up to the side, even on top of the tape there, so that I don't end up with a gap in the paper over there at the side. Okay, just kind of loosely filling those in. I believe that's part of a poppy right there. If it wasn't before, it is now. All right, we also want to put a little something down here in the tabletop area, so I'm just going to take a light gray and, oh, there's a petal that I forgot down there, isn't there? Don't want to forget that stray petal. I think that was really one of my favorite things that drew me to this photograph to use as a reference, was that little petal right down there, that little lone petal. Okay, now let's start in doing a little more definition now. Everything's just really kind of loosely blocked in at this point. The vase right here, we've given you the outline of it, so let's go back to that blue, and I'm kind of using more of the front part, not the side of the pastel, but the end of it. And I'm just going to go around so that we know this is vase right here, around the outside, like so. Okay, now I kind of want to tell you where all the stems are. Let's define those. I'm going to go back to this brown pastel, the same one, but wait, Julie, stems are supposed to be green. Oh, we'll get there. We'll get there. We're going to start out by making them dark, first of all. That's going to be easier to see when we get to it. But second of all, some of these are going to be very shadowed. Now you should be able to tell from the template what is stem down here. If you don't get it exactly, that's okay. There's one up there. And now I can kind of see a little bit more where the background is. So at this point, I'll go back, and since my green is here in the middle, I'm going to go ahead and fill out some of those background areas that I've missed. Some of these are very, very important, these little gaps between. Okay. All right. And you can always clean your fingers off with a paper towel. Even if you're wearing gloves, it's kind of a good idea to not transfer what you've got on there to the next pastel. All right, now let's go in and start defining some of the flowers. So, how many pastels have I used so far, do you think? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really, just 5 colors, I think, so far. You can see it doesn't take a whole lot. All right, so the thing I like about poppies, I said, was that they have kind of a light, or they have a flat, more of a flat petal. So it makes it really easy to kind of see where to put a highlight and where to put a shadow. So we know that our light is back here, coming from here. That's where the light background is. So we're going to put the highlight up above at the top kind of each flower, and I'm not making any kind of definition really here. I'm just taking a pink pastel, being of course a light red, and I would refer to my reference photo, of course. You guys can do that. And you'll see that the areas up here on top of the flower, especially like up here at the top, the areas on top of the flower are a little bit lighter. Catching the light, making a highlight. As I'm doing this, I'm kind of working it into the scarlet red. Our template gives us a hint as to where one flower begins, one ends. And we've even given you a few lines there to tell you this area is another petal, so it's different. Hear that lovely scratch, scratch? I still have lots of sanded paper there. I haven't worn out my texture. All right, and to do a shadow now, sometimes we think we need to take a shadow and make it either a darker red, or we need to make it a, for heaven's sakes, use a black or a brown or a gray to make a shadow. That's not always what I would choose. I tend to go with a color that's like red and is cooler. So a shadow area would be a colder area, temperature-wise. It would be a cooler red, which is a very purple-ish red. So along the bottoms of the flowers here, now I've got this very purplish red that I'm bringing in. And this one's going to fool you a little bit because there's a shadow underneath that top petal. And then we're also going to come out from the center a little bit, you know, just kind of feather it out from the center. So you're touching the feather, the center, but you're also, yeah. I'm going to do the same with each of these where we've had a poppy center. So, while I'm continuing with this, I think it's time to mention again what our prompt is tonight for our $100 e-gift coupon. So, if we ever get a new art set and you open it up and you see all those beautiful brand new colors there in front of you, well, we kind of did that tonight. We took a look at this art set, this pastel set right up here in front of us, and which color would you pick out first? If you had this brand new pastel set in front of you, and I forgot the highlight on this one down here, so I'm going to put that in. Which would you actually pick out? And you don't have to say what the name is, that this is cadmium red medium or whatever. Tell me, would you go for the sky blue? Would you go for the like this poppy red down here, or magenta? Which would you choose? And we'll put your name in the drawing for a $100 e-gift card. Okay, now I'm bringing some green down into those stems. And I'm still being very loose about this. So I'm trying to keep the green up towards the top because that is the lighter, the highlight area. And we'll bring some down into the stems here. Okay, now I bet when you looked at that vase right there, you thought, ooh, that's going to be hard with all those stems in there. Piece of cake. Watch what you do. Taking this green, you're just going to make some real quick lines coming through here. And we'll make more. We're coming along to more of those. But for now, that's all we're going to do. I'm going to further define a little bit more of that vase as well. And let's see, I'm going to come along here, and I should have had this where I could see it a little bit more myself too. All right, we're going to further define with some brown along this vase here. And then you'll notice that there's also, of course, some highlight in that vase. Let's go back to that light gray that we put into the background here. And we're going to use that as our highlight along the top of the jar and kind of along the side. All right, you can kind of see whereas I'm kind of filling in a little bit here now. So what I'm going to get to next really is wrapping up this painting by harmonizing everything. We've used all the colors that we're going to use at this point. No, I take that back. There's one more that we haven't used that we're going to use. But we're going to make those colors kind of bring this whole thing together all at once. And we're going to go backwards now. Let's start back at the background here. Background's still very loose here, and we can blend it a little bit more with a little bit of that blue. We could add a little bit more brown to make it a little darker. Now the blue to me and all this, it's a little bright to me. So if you think about the color wheel, and if you think that blue is a little bit light, then how do you tone it down? A good way to think is to think about what its complementary color would be, which would be an orange. And I will take something, say, along this light orange right here. I'm going to break that again. You'll notice that some of the ones I've used I break. It's just kind of a thing that I prefer. But we can very lightly work in a little bit of orange or a little bit of orangish brown just over the top of that blue. And do you see how it's toning it down? It's making it more of a grayish blue. So I'm just going to tone areas of that bright blue here with that. And now, because we're getting towards the end, this is where you could start to do some blending. Yes, you could take your finger and you could start blending that in. I'm going to take a very soft brush and I'm just going to kind of flick it over, not every area, just a few areas. Here, I'm going to start over on where I began on the outside. And I'm just blending here and there so that I don't have the rough pastel edges. Okay, now let's clean that brush off with a paper towel. I'm going to do the same thing. Just kind of frequently cleaning them off. Now I'm getting a real painterly area back here too, aren't I? Pushing the background back, and that's a good thing because it's just the background. We want the stars to be these beautiful poppies and not background. I'm going to do the same thing down here with the table. Like so. A little bit in the vase. Notice I am wiping my brush off every now and then so that I'm not moving my colors together. And I'm going to do the same thing in the poppy area, blending just some of those colors together. I'm moving quickly. I am not worried about blending every single area. I know that there's things like tortillons and blending stumps and things where you can get in there and really get it blended together. but I'm just going for a little looser quality than that. All right, now I'm seeing a lot of dust. Now I could take and blow on it, and then I'd get a face full of dust. So rather than do that, I'm going to kind of tap it from the back side, and hopefully some of that will fall forward and clear out of the way. All right, a few more things about harmonizing. So let's see, the next color we went into was blue. So I'm going to create just a little blue underneath here, underneath the petal. And then let's bring a little bit more of blue into the jar here in the stems. And this is kind of weird. Let's work a little blue in on top to describe some of the inside of those poppies. And harmonizing really just kind of takes the colors that are in your piece and brings them throughout the entire piece. And that brings the whole piece together. Let's see, a little of the green. We're going to do a little of that just down here in the jar. Think about maybe we've got some reflections of the green of the poppies. I need to work a little bit more green up here. This light green right here, I'm going to bring that light green and make some hard edges around the poppies. It's nice when you have a blend of hard edges, soft edges, a variety. I do see a couple areas down here. In between that I don't have color in, so I'm going to work those in. There was a landscape artist that taught me how important those little lights coming through, especially when you're talking about trees and things. Instead of creating positive space, you're making the negative space there. And that's very important. Pastel, by the way, is the perfect medium for plein air painting. You can imagine with the dust. It's really perfect. And besides that, you don't have to actually mix your colors and take the time to look at the red on the side of that barn and say, how do I mix that color? You just look down at your kit there and pick out the color. It's already mixed. There's also something really beautiful about being able to just have your hands on it. Make a little harder edge back here on the table. Lighten up some of those areas I've covered as highlights. All right, I'm going to just take a glance here at my finished piece. And just a little bit more of that orange that we calmed down the background with. I'm going to put a little of that here in the poppies. Once again, I'm just really lightly doing this. And why? Because it's making it cohesive. And bringing your whole piece together. Now watch this, I'm even going to put a few of those down here in the vase as if they were highlights. I think this little guy is having a little hard time struggling against the background there. So I'm going to get a little highlight of that orange on top of the green, which really when your eyes look at it, because they're mixing those colors together, even though they're not truly mixed, it's telling you that that is a light green, not an orange. All right, well, I think a couple things I'll add is just maybe a little bit, I'll take the blue and add a little bit of shadow underneath the base there. We'll mix in a little bit of pink, very lightly, over the back, over the jar. You can just come back and work little bits on top of it here and there. Now that blue's pretty bright, so let's tone it down with a little bit of that orange. And a little bit of that orange to give you some light in the background. I don't know, I think I'm getting pretty happy with it. We're about finished, so let's move on and talk about what to do with it once we're finished with it. Now, you can use a fixative spray, and if you've used sprays on pastel before, you probably may have seen some darkening take place. So here's a fixative that I recommend, many people recommend for pastel fixing. It's called Lasco, and it is least likely that we think of as many brands to darken your colors. So to fix it, what you would do is you would lay your pastel painting flat, and you would spray kind of in the air a little bit so that the particles fall on to your piece, and then turn it this way and do the same thing so that you're not spraying directly on and creating puddles, wet puddles in it, but you're allowing it to fall down onto the piece instead. And then let it dry and come back and repeat that a few times again. Almost finished here, but I keep forgetting, and I need to remind you guys, we are giving away that $100 e-gift coupon, and this is really about your last chance for you to get entered in that. And what you need to do tonight is take a look at this beautiful pastel set that I have up here. If you want to see the colors more closely, go to our materials list, and you can click the link to that just right here with right above in our description of this video. And just imagine you've got this beautiful new set here in front of you. Which pastel are you going to take out of that set and use first? You don't have to tell us the color, just tell us vaguely the violet, the peony pink, the lemonade yellow, something like that. Just which color are you going to go for first? Now, if you're going to keep pastels around for a long time, you do need to frame them behind glass. And we have a great frame now, and this comes in a few different colors, a brown and a black, and I just really loved this gray that it went. Loved this gray, just went so well with this painting here. And this is the Nielsen Bainbridge. I wrote it down here. I got it cheap because it's new. I don't know it quite yet. The Air Float frame. The Air Float, and it's perfect for pastels because it's got a double mat. So you have your painting, you have a mat, you have another mat, and you have this great space between the painting itself and the glass. So the painting does not come in contact with the glass. You can imagine if you've got pastel that could smear around a little bit, and if it was against the glass could really cause some damage. Or you could get some friction that would actually attract the pastel dust onto the glass. Normally that happens with plexiglass. But with glass, it doesn't, and you've got the great space. So these frames are really perfect for framing up pastel work. Okay, well, we're going to draw a winner for that $100 e-gift card, and we'll be posting that here in just a moment. And in the meantime, I just want to say thank you so very much for joining me, and I really hope that you'll create one of your own paintings in pastel. And I hope that I've done something tonight to show you how really unintimidating pastel painting can be. And thank you for joining us.